All right, you're good.
Good to go.
Yep.
Welcome to the Eephus, episode 21. Very special episode today. I'm Justin Ledger. I'm with Zach Hummel. Zach, how we doing?
Doing well, doing well. Big episode here. Big episode.
Our first ever guest, Jared Carabas, has an interview with us. Finally landed him. We'll get to that later in the episode. We're gonna start with a little bit of baseball news. We're gonna try to be quick with these because we want to get right into the Carabas interview, but we got some shit to talk about. We interviewed Carabas on Wednesday, so a little awkward timing. We didn't get to cover a lot of this stuff with him, unfortunately, but we're gonna cover that, get right into the Carabas interview, then we'll get into segments after that. So I think we can start out with the Starling Marte news. Suspended 80 games for just straight up steroids. No hiding it. It was a steroid. It wasn't just some substance that he mistakenly took. It's something that he injected. He kind of denied that, saying that it was just neglectful and he wasn't knowledgeable about it. That's a load of bullshit. I want your take on this, though. We covered this with Carabas actually a little bit, and he said the same exact thing. But I want to talk about this here too a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Carabas' take. Like, Andy Pettitte came out and admitted he took steroids, and people forget he took steroids. But my thought on this is, like, I think I said it within the Carabas interview. If you give a Dominican guy, like, any enhancement and tell him he can hit probably 10 to 15 more home runs, they will put this substance in their body. And I think that's what Starling Marte did. Some trainer that he grew up with said, this will help you recover. This will help you, hit a couple more home runs. And Marte's like, sure, I'll do that. They all
Right.
grow up in poor backgrounds. So anything to make money, hit more home runs, they'll do. I just don't get him denying it when it's pretty obvious that this PED just doesn't get in your system by chance. You had to take it knowing what you were taking.
It bugs the hell out of me. A lot of these guys act like they took some sort of allergy medicine or something, and it's like, oops, there was a steroid in it, had no idea. It's a load of bullshit. I'm tired of it. I'd rather have a guy like Andy Pettitte just come out and say, look, I made a mistake. I took a steroid, either if it's because of an injury or a competitive edge. I get it. I get why, as an athlete, you would want to do that. I have nothing against guys who want to get an edge. I have something against liars. I have something against guys who aren't accountable and don't own up to what they did. And I think a lot of players who don't use drugs feel the same way. Just own up to it, and then we'll get over it, and then you'll be fine. And then you'll go back once you're done with your suspension, and you'll have a pretty good career. Starling Marte is a good player. He doesn't need steroids. He's not that type of player anyway. He's a speed guy.
Yeah, this PR strategy of deny, even though all the facts are on the table and you got caught in a lie is so stupid, and it's so overused within steroids in baseball. Just come out and admit it. People will forget. Like you said, exactly. I have no problem with a guy trying to get an edge. You did something wrong. You're going to pay the price, and you'll be back. I mean, that's all you need to say on that.
Yeah, and D. Gordon just did this exact same thing last year. It's basically D. Gordon part 2. Just another speed guy who got caught in a lie, tried to get a little more pop, and got caught, and now he looks like an idiot. So we'll see how this ends up with Marte. He's actually ineligible for the postseason should the Pirates make it. He's got that 80-game suspension, but if the Pirates make the postseason, which I don't think they will, then Marte won't be eligible. So, in other words, the Pirates, you can pretty much count them out this season.
Yeah, cancel the Pirates.
Yep, cancel them. So Eric Thames, another guy who has recently been in the performance-enhancing drugs conversation. Last week, me and you joked that Eric Thames, there's going to be some sort of talk about PEDs around this guy. And sure enough, John Lackey calls him out pretty much and says, he gave a little wink and a nudge. I'll read the statement right here.
Classic John Lackey, just being like, kind of being that Texas Ranger, just kind of talking shit about players when he gets shelled.
Exactly. He's been getting shelled all year so far, so I think he's just taking it out. He's trying to find excuses. He threw a garbage cutter to Eric Thames that he took him oppo on. So he took it a little bit of anger out. He said, quote, "You watch film on recent stuff and try to figure out a way, to get him out. But I mean, really, even the homer hit the other way. I mean, you don't see that happen here very often. That's kind of one of those things that makes you scratch your head." And while he scratched his head, he gave a little wink. Now, I don't know if Lackey's trolling, But if he's not and he's dead serious about this, come on, dude, grow up. Like that's such bullshit to just say. I mean, they get tested in Korea. Me and you joked that maybe he was taking something over there. You still get tested there. I think you might even get tested there harsher than they do here. Because for here, like Chris Davis had that Adderall thing, but that wasn't really a huge deal. I think you're technically allowed to have it if you have a prescription in the MLB. But over there, it's very strict. You're not allowed to have those types of substances. So John Lackey, grow the fuck up. I actually like Lackey. I liked him on the Red Sox, but that's bullshit if you're actually going to call this guy out who's been one of the better storylines of the season so far.
Yeah, this is more of a Lackey issue to me than Eric Thames. You know, Eric Thames is just doing his job, making a great comeback. Like you said, he's been one of the best storylines of the year, and John Lackey has to come up with this poo-poo attitude. I mean, John Lackey is one of these guys that's like, when he drops off the table, which he's doing this year, like he's crashing and burning pretty hard. He's got like over a 5 ERA. He is going to blame his performance on everything else. You know, the weather, the umpire, the opposing batters on steroids. He's one of these guys that just can't take accountability for making a bad pitch. Right. So I think we'll see more of this from Lackey as he continues to struggle this season.
Yeah, I mean, he pitched last night against the Reds. I think it was last night. And he let up a couple bombs. And I was laughing out loud to myself watching the highlights because it showed Lackey let up a bomb, an absolute rocket. And it just pans to Lackey, and he's swearing, but they're blurring out his mouth. So, like, it's just classic Lackey. The guy hasn't changed a bit over the course of his career. I love the guy, but this is just stupid. Like, leave Thames alone until he's actually proven guilty. He deserves all the credit that he's getting. He has 8 homers and he's batting .360. So this isn't a mistake. That guy has talent. Yeah,
like, you know, as much as I hate John Lackey for doing this, I mean, we talked about on the podcast last week, like there's something around Thames that he should be getting tested every other week. And I think maybe he's sharing his stuff with Travis Shaw, who's been absolutely killing the ball.
Just about to say, the Brewers have some solid players right now. It's pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, maybe Thames brought his Space Jam water that he's giving all the players, and they're just going yabo all over the place.
Maybe. Another guy who has been a pretty good storyline is Ichiro. He hit a home run in what was probably his final at bat at Safeco Field. He faced off against the Mariners. Fantastic moment. Ichiro's always been one of my favorite players. He's just a different type of player. He's always been nice with the media and everything. He's basically been a hero in Japan. He's easily the most popular player from there. But Ichiro has been in the game what seems like forever, and I got to give credit where credit is due. That guy is awesome to watch, and this was just a fantastic moment.
Yeah, if you're our age, like mid to early 20s, like Ichiro was one of the guys growing up that you emulated. Like when you were playing wiffle ball in the yard, you do the Ichiro stance. Like he literally changed the game. There hasn't been a player that comes along like Ichiro where he almost was running when he started to hit. I mean, everyone would try to emulate that. I remember in Little League, there'd be any kid that was a lefty and fast would try the Ichiro swing, you know, just slap and get on base. And it's worked for him. I mean, he has over 3,000 hits just in the MLB, which is amazing. And he's still playing, which is even crazier. And he still has the power to hit a home run at Safeco Field, which just puts the icing on the cake to a great career.
Yeah, I will take Ichiro to lead off my all-time roster and play right field any day of the week.
Yeah, great defender too. Great
absolutely. Ichiro in his prime, it has to be mentioned. He's an easy Hall of Fame. He's a surefire Hall of Famer.
For sure,
but Ichiro in his prime has to be mentioned as one of the greatest baseball players of all time.
I actually have a conspiracy theory. This is SportsCenter commercials.
Yeah.
There was one with Ichiro, which I think got deleted because it was racist. There's this guy in a meeting that says, Ichiro is number one. Anyone complain? And I cannot find it anywhere on the web, but I swear I've seen it like 8 or 9 times growing up. I think it was like deleted off the internet because it was like racist toward Asian.
It kind of rings a bell. So if anyone has like access to that video, just definitely send them over and we'll retweet it on the Twitter account at Eephus Pod. I vaguely remember that.
I remember it too. I just can't pinpoint it. I just can't point where it is.
I want to see that now. A little bit of drama too this past week between Miguel Sano and James McCann. Last podcast we were talking about how rivalries haven't really heated up yet. Usually you got to wait till May for that type of thing when everything starts getting a little more competitive towards the All-Star break. However, we had Miguel Sano, we had James McCann. Sano took exception to a pitch. I forget who threw it. It was just some no-name guy. I forget who it was. But Miguel Sano took exception to a pitch up and in. He glared at the mound, and James McCann got up at his face. Miguel Sano threw. It wasn't a punch, was it? Like, it wasn't really a punch. It was more of just like a shove.
Yeah, like a one-handed shove.
All the headlines were saying it was a punch or like a right hook. It wasn't. It wasn't anything close to that, but he did shove him a little bit, and him and the pitcher were both ejected. Tempers flaring. I mean, I'm loving it. We're gonna get to another incident in a second, but I'm into it. I would not want to mess with Sano or McCann. So seeing two heavyweights like that go at it is always entertaining.
Yeah, this was the first weekend where we started to see some action. The first one was the Sano, obviously. I think the Detroit pitcher, hit him because he was showing up other Detroit pitchers. Right. He was hitting like home runs and other stuff. But yeah, it was almost like a Veritek A-Rod situation in their classic fight. Like the batter and catcher start, John, and then it just goes at it. Yeah. But I love Nick Castellanos from the Tigers. Like, he must have been out of the dugout already because right when they started punching, he was right in Sano's face, ready to throw down. So McCann was walking right towards Sano. He was not afraid, but at the same time, take your mask off, dude. If you're gonna do that, don't take your damn mask off. It's like, what are you doing? I hate catchers when they do that. If you look at the tail of the tape, like Sano is almost twice the size of McCann, and McCann didn't back down at all. So it's one of those things where, like, a fight's only going to go one or two like punches, if that, until your teammates break it up. But great to see early in the season, especially division opponents who we'll be keeping an eye on that Tigers Twins series all year. Right. Yeah, we'll get to more drama in a minute, but we have a couple of notable injuries to talk about here. We have Madison Bumgarner. This is a huge injury, and not even just because of the big name Bumgarner, but it was a freak accident. Apparently, he got a dirt bike accident and hurt himself. I don't know what the exact details of the injury are, but the Giants cannot afford to lose Madison Bumgarner. They're already slumping. The Rockies and the D-backs are emerging in that division. They're pretty scary teams. They're kind of changing the status quo in the NL West. So for the Giants to lose Madison Bumgarner for any period of time is alarming. So the dirt bike thing, it's the least surprising thing I've ever heard in Bumgarner news. So yeah, when you get Bumgarner, he's going to go dirt biking and do some off-roading shit, BMX stuff. That's just Bumgarner. BMX stuff, yeah. Shows how much I know about that kind of stuff. Yeah, Bumgarner's he's just a down south guy, and he's going to do that stuff. So you can't write that into the contract. But yeah, as you mentioned, the Giants. Right when I heard about that injury, 6 to 8 weeks, I thought the Giants season's done, especially without Bumgarner. Right. Even with Bumgarner, they've been struggling. So without that ace where they can get, a projected win once a week, I think they're done. Especially I don't think division with all the other teams playing well. I don't think it's bold to say that the Rockies and the Diamondbacks will both finish ahead of the Giants by the end of the season. I think San Francisco's luck has kind of run out. They gotta start building. They still got Matt Cain. They got to start getting some new guys to fill these roles. They need an outfielder too. So they're in a little bit of rough shape. The Rockies and the Diamondbacks look much more balanced on paper. And so far this season, they're 1-2 in that division. So that speaks volumes to how the Giants are doing right now. Yeah, and I don't know if another Giants news, the fucking dud, which is Hunter Pence. He gave up an inside the park home run by slipping the other day, and he was limping after the ball, and I couldn't help but think, what a dud that guy is. What a dud. Yeah, that's a dud move. Anytime you're that guy who lets up an inside the Parker, you're a dud. So Hunter Pence, not necessarily my dud of the week, which we'll get to in a little bit, but it's certainly a dud. So in injury news, while we're talking about that, the Mets, another scuffling team that cannot afford to deal with injuries right now. The Nationals are easily the class of that division. The Mets were sort of they were the consensus number 2 team in that division. A lot of experts had the Mets as their World Series pick or deep in the playoffs. So the Mets had high expectations this year. They got some injuries they're dealing with right now. Cespedes is banged up. I think he's coming back tomorrow, or at least he plans to, but he's been banged up with a hamstring. You know how hamstring injuries can be. They can nag you throughout an entire season. Lucas Duda has been out. Jacob deGrom, they cannot afford to lose him. He's been out. Who else do we got here? Travis d'Arnaud has a nagging wrist. David Wright.
David Wright, but like that's to be expected.
He's
and
done.
then that guy's done. I mean, please search David Wright girlfriend though on our wife on Google, and then maybe you'll come to our website, give us a few clicks. But Wilmer Flores is another one. He has a joint infection, so this just seems like it's like a bad omen for this Mets team. And you've been high on the Marlins, so the Marlins, this could be the year they finish second in that division, maybe compete for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I think it definitely is. And don't keep your eye on the Philadelphia Phillies. They're
Right.
500. They're ahead of the Mets too. They're young and exciting. They're built similar to how Miami kind of is with crappy pitching and a good lineup. So yeah, it's definitely too early to kind of count the Mets out, because if they get healthy, they're probably one of the strongest teams in the NL. And I can see them making a run just because they got a bunch of games versus the Braves, the Phillies, the Marlins. They can start racking up wins once everyone gets healthy. But that's a big if. They've been the most injured team the last like 3 years in MLB. So yeah, I think the Mets, I don't see them really turning this around. It could mean for Terry Collins' job too.
Might mean a little bit of a fire sale at the deadline too. Maybe part ways with a little bit of pitching. You never know. So sticking with injuries, before we get into the Carabas interview, this is the last topic before we get into that. Something I wish we could have covered with Carabas is this incident. Unfortunately, we recorded that interview on Wednesday, so a lot has transpired since then. But that's what happens in podcast biz. Sometimes you don't get to cover everything when you interview someone. So Pedroia got hurt because of Manny Machado sliding into second. First, I want your take on that slide itself. Pedroia got spiked. I, even as a Red Sox fan, don't think it was necessarily a dirty play, but I do want to hear your take on it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I don't think it was dirty play. I don't think Machado had any, intuition to hurt Pedroia, or, he was just trying to make a hard slide into second base. And for anyone that slid into second base, sometimes you start your slide a little late. And Machado even ripped his pants. Like, it was a terrible slide. It was more his ineptness of sliding than actually like preconceiving trying to hurt Pedroia. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but with Pedroia getting injured, and obviously some Red Sox teammates took exception to the slide by Machado. They thought it was dirty.
Yeah, Matt Barnes threw at Machado's head. It was blatant. You can't make any excuse for that. It was right behind Machado's head, whizzed right by him. Fastball, 90-plus mile per hour fastball right at his head. You can't do that. You can't do that. Drill him in the ass. Drill him in the lower body. That's fine. I can do that. That would have been warranted, I think. Send a little message. You don't mess with our leader. You don't throw at the head. I hate to defend the Orioles here, but all the anger directed towards the Red Sox for throwing at the head of their star, it's warranted. So that being said, we could be looking at a legitimate rivalry finally for the Red Sox. We saw tempers flare a couple years back with the Rays. That rivalry didn't last too long, but now we're on to the Orioles. This is our new rival apparently for at least this season.
Yeah, I love when these sort of incidents happen early in the season, because we got like 15 more games versus the Orioles, and I can't imagine this is going away. But Nesson for anyone that watched the game, it was obvious that Eduardo Rodriguez was trying to hit Machado earlier in the game, and he literally couldn't hit him. Like, he kept throwing it behind him and whatnot. And then when Machado, Barnes tried to throw above his head, Nesson got a great split screen of Machado and Pedroia, like speeding back and forth. Yeah, and that for fans is what we don't usually see. It's like baseball etiquette. Pedroia was saying, I didn't order that. Like, we would have hit you in your first at bat if we were going to hit you. We would have hit you low. And Machado said, all right, like, whatever. And then Zach Britton came out after the game and was pretty much saying that Pedroia has no control over there. He's trying to kind of put a little issue in the Red Sox clubhouse over, who's ordering what. So, fuck Zach Britton. Yeah, fuck Zach Britton.
That was bullshit. I actually really like Zach Britton, but now he's on my shit list. That's just a stupid comment to make about a guy who's undoubtedly not the biggest leader on the Red Sox, but one of the biggest leaders in baseball. That guy, when you watch Pedroia play, day in and day out, there is no bigger leader in this sport. I don't care if your name's Mike Trout. I don't care if your name's Clayton Kershaw. Pedroia is the biggest leader in baseball. And for Zach Britton, a guy who's in the disabled list and has no business saying shit right now, to come out and just talk some shit about Pedroia, that's Bush League. That's maybe even more Bush League than what Barnes did. He should have just let it go. That, if anything, that's going to be what causes more of a rivalry for the rest of the season. I thought if Britain never said anything, I would have been like, okay, this is over. Well, they moved on. They sent their message and they'll move on. But that's some Bush League comments from Britain.
Yeah, that came out of left field for me. And, in terms of handling it inside the Red Sox clubhouse, I'm sure Pedroia took Barnes aside and was being like, you didn't need to do that,
Right.
And next time something happens like that, come to me if you want to end up hitting a guy. Like, I'll decide if, the other player gets retribution. So I think the Red Sox will handle it fine.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily expect benches to clear or anything for the rest of the season, but there's going to be some tension in the air, especially because, there already was a little bit of tension. Last year, they threw at Mookie Betts. It was a pitch that went right past Mookie Betts' head. So you kind of have that history stemming back from that. And then you also have Buck Showalter coming from the clouds and calling out the Red Sox for the way they handled their flu situation. So there's been tension for a while, even before this Pedroia Machado incident. So I guess next time the Orioles are coming to Fenway soon. So I think next week. So that's a series that's going to be watched by many.
Yeah, I don't think like you mentioned, I don't think the two managers like each. I don't think Showalter likes Farrell. You could even tell when they're reviewing the Machado, like that it hit his bat and not his helmet. Like Showalter was like, Farrell, what the hell are you doing? Like, let's get this game going. I don't think they like each other. So fireworks for the rest of the season. I'm excited. Finally.
I'm excited too. It definitely gives you a reason to tune in this early in the season, which as a baseball fan, it's the best to have that kind of rivalry already. We still have the whole season to go. It's going to be excellent. All right, on that note, let's get into the interview with Carrabis. Awesome interview. I'm really excited about it. Here's Jared Carrabis. All right, so then we'll cut this part, and then we'll get into duds. All right, so now let's get into some segments. We'll start off with our dud of the week. As always, me and you, we pick the biggest duds in our minds from this past week since the last podcast. So I'll let you start. Who is your dud of the week?
Yeah, we talked about the Mets earlier and their injury and their struggles. I'm going to go with someone from the Mets. I'm going to go with Jose Reyes. He's hitting 143. He's not just a dud this week. He's been a dud the whole season, almost his whole career, to be totally honest with you.
Right.
He's slugging 190. I think he might be washed up. I think his career might be over. I think it might be time for Jose Reyes to hang it up. Because he hit 270 last year, and now he's hitting 143. It doesn't get much more dud than that.
Jose Reyes was my dud, so I couldn't agree more. But I had a backup. Jose Reyes, not only, by the way, a dud on the baseball field, that guy's a dud of the person. Obviously, he had domestic violence issues. Yeah. Now he has this whole thing going on with, he has a side chick that he just got pregnant. I don't know what's going on in the life of Jose. Apparently, he leads a double life or something. So that guy is a dud on every aspect of life. I can't stand Jose Reyes. That guy, I hope he breaks both ACLs and retires. My dud is Jose Bautista. It was Jose Reyes, but now it's the other Jose, I guess. Bautista I'll go with. Not a good week for Jose's. However, he did kind of heat up in the last couple of days, but he's still batting 132. He only has one home run. For a guy who his marketability is purely home runs, he's never going to hit for a high average. He's a home run guy, and he has one home run on the season on a struggling Blue Jays team that wasn't even planning on re-signing him in the offseason. They were very willing to let him go. So you got to believe the Blue Jays front office is sort of second-guessing themselves.
Yeah, Jose Bautista doesn't get much more of a dud this year. His strikeout numbers are up. He's not getting as many walks, and obviously his average is low. With Bautista, now that Encarnacion's gone, the Blue Jays kind of go as he goes, and he hasn't been going, so they've been playing terrible. So it doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't surprise me either. I didn't expect a big year out of Bautista. I knew after last season, a lot of people said, oh, maybe it was just a bad year. He had the free agency coming up. Maybe he didn't live up to the pressure that comes with a contract year, blah, blah, blah. He's turning into a big-time dud. Something to keep an eye on throughout the season. I honestly think there's a good chance he hits maybe like 17 home runs this year, bats 210, has one of those terrible years that those types of players usually have. Yep,
totally agree with you. So 2 Jose duds of the week. Reyes and Bautista.
Yeah, Terrible week for Jose. If your name's Jose out there, you probably had a tough week.
Yeah.
Move on to don't call it a comeback. I'll start with this one. My don't call it a comeback this week is a guy you actually considered a dud before the season. It's Mike Moustakas, having a pretty good start to the year. He's coming back last season. He had a torn ACL. He only played in 27 games. So like next week or 2 weeks from now, a year from then is when he suffered the injury. So 27 games last season, torn ACL. Right now, he has 6 homers already. He's batting .286 on a Royals team that, I mean, a lot of guys are in contract years. I think Moustakas is included in that. Eric Hosmer is struggling, so Moustakas is sort of picking up the slack. He's my don't call it a comeback. I'm not necessarily saying that he's going to keep it up all year, but it's a good start by him in his contract year. So I had to throw him on here.
Yeah, Moustakas has definitely had a good year. Like you said before the season, I thought he could end up in a dud, but he's actually been one of the only bright spots for a struggling Royals team. My don't call it a comeback of the week is a guy that, when this guy hits a home run, like I have to watch the highlight because it's usually an absolute bomb. It's Joey Gallo from the Rangers.
Okay. I like that one.
Yeah, he hit 40, like 40. That was his batting average last year in 17 games. He's still sort of struggling at the plate. He's hitting .214, but as long as his home run numbers are up, I don't think the Rangers care. He's got 6 dingers, 14 RBIs. In that ballpark where it's a short right field fence, he is absolutely fitted for that ballpark. Good to see Joey Gallo back on track because he was one of the top prospects in baseball, and he's finally sort of figuring it out at the dish. So should be great to watch him. Hopefully he enters the home run derby and just crushes some balls.
I could totally see Gallo being in the home run derby. That is such a home run derby guy. Just a low average guy who just hits absolute bombs. I think at this point, if you were to make a home run derby bracket, I don't think there's any way you could not put Gallo on it. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Of course, as home run derby comes closer, we'll be making our home run derby brackets, who we think should be on it and everything. But Gallo has to be on that list as of right now. Lastly, we'll leave off with our When You're Hot segment. I'll start with this one. Freddie Freeman. He has 7 home runs. He's batting .381 on a Braves team that stinks. This Braves team stinks. I actually thought they'd be pretty watchable this season with Bartolo and R.A. Dickey, veterans like them and Brandon Phillips. Then you got Dansby Swanson, another dud, by the way, so far this year. And then you got Freddie Freeman. I was pretty excited to watch the Braves. They stink, but Freddie Freeman has been a bright spot. So, like I said, 7 homers, .381 average, and he's been tearing it up this past week for the Braves. So he's my when you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah, I don't know his contract situation, but they could get a king's ransom for him at the deadline. If some team needed a bat in the middle of the order, I mean, they could get a lot of prospects and some ready major league talent. So, yeah, Freddie Freeman's been great this year. My when you're hot was Anthony Rizzo from the Cubs. In this weekend series with the Reds, just in this series, he had 3 home runs and he had 8 RBIs. I mean, he single-handedly won the series for the Cubs.
Hit a bomb off our favorite player, Bronson Arroyo.
Yeah, hit an absolute bomb off Arroyo. The Reds were hot. They're not so hot now. So Anthony Rizzo's through convection, I think that's the word. He took the Reds heat and put it into his bat, and he just had an unbelievable series. So, yeah, when you're hot, you're hot. Anthony Rizzo really carried the Cubs this weekend over the Reds.
One guy, I was originally going to put him, but I just decided not to, is Bryce Harper. I just think we have to talk about his hot start. He was originally going to be my when you're hot, you're hot. He is tearing the cover off the ball. He's earned the nickname from me, Mr. April. He's a fantastic player in April. I think I said this last week, but we got to keep an eye on how he does for the rest of the season because he's notoriously good in April and May. I don't judge Harper until around the All-Star break, but that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, and until it gets later in the season, I can't really make a definitive, direction on Harper. Like you said, he's always been great in the beginning of the season, so it's good for him to get off to good starts because a lot of players don't. So it's actually a good characteristic he has.
Yeah, without a doubt. So that pretty much wraps up the show. Thank you again to Jared Carabas. Excellent interview. Really excited to have him. We're hoping to have more guests in the coming weeks. We will update you on that. But until next time, Zach, I think that's all we got.
Yep, that's all I got, man. Peace.
All right, see you guys later.